This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, Real Talkers, time flies. It's hard to believe that a few days from this live stream, from when we're recording this episode, we'll officially hit the 6-month mark of the tenure of the two biggest cities' mayors in our home province of Alberta. That's right. And the case would be true as well for those of you in the smaller markets, those medium and smaller sized communities. You'll say you're aware that we were all voting in that municipal election as well back in October, and that would be true. But the story today is a 6-month review of sorts, a check-in with Calgary's Mayor Jeromy Farkas, Edmonton's Mayor Andrew Knack, both of them first-term mayors, both of them steering councils in two of Canada's most dynamic cities. There's a lot of ground to cover, and we're grateful to have both mayors joining us in our Real Talk studio. That's coming up in about 30 seconds. Shauna Feth as well, President and CEO of the Alberta Chambers, has her eye on Alberta business. And you know we're going to touch on today's top story, at least in our home province, allegations of gerrymandering, as Danielle Smith's UCP government says that they believe they're best equipped to redraw electoral boundaries, the opposition crying foul, saying they're making it easier for them to secure another victory next time around. We'll see what Real Talkers have to say in our live chat powered by Park Power, and you know we've got the Flamethrower locked and loaded as well. That's how we'll wrap this episode, presented by our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Let's get the ball rolling. RapidX Financial is presenting this special episode of the show, and if you're following crypto, you know that the crypto world moves fast and that your trust in an exchange just can't be a gamble, and that's why we're proud to partner with RapidX Financial. This is a made-in-Alberta solution backed by the same experts behind the Rapid Cash ATMs you've seen across Canada for like 25 years. Little tidbit of info for you guys. If you watched our whiskey special just yesterday, you heard from Bill Eaton. Bill's the owner of Hanson Distillery. Well, Bill is the founder of the Rapid Cash ATM empire, and he's the driving force behind RapidXFinancial.com. This is an Alberta success story, and RapidX is making it especially easy for you to get started with 3 ways to trade. With Bitcoin, you can use one of those physical crypto ATMs, self-explanatory, simple to use. They've got an over-the-counter desk for the larger value trades, more discreet trades, and of course the secure online platform that we're showing you at RapidXFinancial.com. A special offer for Real Talkers with the promo code Ryan50, Ryan50, all one word. They'll knock 50% off all of your online Interac e-transfer trades. 50% off all the fees. RapidX Financial is secure, it's FinTrack registered, and critically, it's non-custodial, meaning that you will always control your keys. Don't forget the promo code Ryan50 at RapidXFinancial.com. As we officially welcome to our Real Talk studio in the historic Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton, is His Worships the proper?
I think it's
plural,
proper, but we hate it.
His Worships.
No. Only Nahad Nenshi is forced to call me that. Everyone else is just Mayor Jeromy.
You like when Calgary's former mayors refer to you as Calgary's current mayor?
Just him.
Just Nenshi. This is Jeromy Farkas, and he's the mayor of Calgary. This is Andrew Knack, and he's the mayor of Edmonton. And both of you joining us in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Thanks for being here, you two.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is a beautiful space.
It's wonderful to be here again.
Thank you. The last
table, geez.
Hey, this is Urban Timber. Urban Timber did the table. You were telling us you've already got a big weekend planned in the capital city.
Well, Urban Timber, Friesen Brothers, Dairy Queen in Northwest Edmonton. Let's go.
Keep her going. The Helm clothing, just keep her rolling.
Let's roll.
Pick up some solar panels from Kubi. I mean, you could have a big day.
Well, you're Alberta's #1 talk show for a reason.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that, Mayor. This is what Calgary's mayor does. He comes up here, he splashes some cash around,
Good. And performing tomorrow night.
Yeah, so I am actually in town for a bunch of meetings today with government, with Mayor Knack. I'll be chatting with later today, but tomorrow I'll be performing as part of our Hungarian dance troupe who comes up every year from Calgary for the Johann Strauss Foundation's charity ball. So
wow,
they do a fundraiser for musical education, and I'll be doing the traditional folk dance, the Politash dancing, and
Was this something you grew up doing? And
I did not. I came to it late in life, but I've tried to keep as much of the stuff that I was doing before I was mayor in my life as now, because there's going to be a time in my after I'm done being mayor, and I still got to be me, you know?
Yeah.
You said late in life. You're still under 40.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not. I'm just we're going to make it.
Well, after 6 months, I think you're on several terms, Mayor Knack.
Yeah, I think
already,
we're in
but
year 100 right now.
I feel like
being on
I've
city
aged
council.
probably 5 years in the last 6 months. It's,
Is that what it feels like 6 months in? I mean, I guess, we're talking about two different cities, two different realities, two different council makeups. I mean, there's a lot different about the two of your situation. How are you feeling, Mayor Knack, 6 months in?
I'm truly very excited. It's been an absolute privilege. I know that sounds very cliche. It's a privilege and an honor, but it is truly a privilege and honor to get to serve in this role, to help shape the city in a small way along with everyone else in the city who does that great work day in and day out. I get to work with a great group of people. We don't always agree, but the last 6 months has felt as much as there's a million things that are going on, it feels like for the first time in a long time, this council, at least in Edmonton, I'll let Mayor Farkas speak for himself, but we have some very clear direction. We have strategic priorities as a council. That's not something we've had in my time on council.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So in my first 12 years, we never actually set a clear strategic plan. We just sort of kept going and we would respond. And now, to be fair, the first 8 years when Mayor Iveson was mayor, he won with such a large margin. You sort of had to do whatever he did because he won with such a large mandate. But, something I committed to and recognizing, I didn't win with a large mandate. So I wanted to make sure that when I got onto this term of council, that I worked with this council so that we could set out what our strategic priorities would be. And we determined earlier this year that we would focus on economic development, managing our rapid growth, quality services, and safety. But we actually have never done that before and set those very clear priorities and made them public to all of Edmontonians. So I'm glad we actually have a guiding star to work towards as a group.
Meta Moderns in our live chat powered by Park Power kicks $5 into the super chat and asks Mayor Farkas, what's the topic today? Very well played.
I think it's water pipes.
Should we bring people in on the inside
the
joke?
meme? Yes, yes.
You often pop into our live chat asking what's the topic today, and I'll give Meta Modern full points for that. And
I think it was frustrating the first 5 or 10 times I did it, but it was just everyone just goes along.
We've always
with it
enjoyed
now.
it. I could ask you. Generally speaking, Mayor Knack, ever the diplomat. Talking the honor and the pleasure to serve, and obviously I know that is sincere. I know that both of you wanted these jobs for a long time. Well, actually, yours is you kind of bounced around a little bit, Mayor Knack.
Sure did.
To be fair,
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, both of you obviously. I think people understand that you campaigned in earnest and that you approached the job with you bring everything to the job. But you stepped in on the infrastructure front. You stepped into a huge mess. And a lot of people are talking. A lot of people are, people want to pin it on Naheed Nenshi. That's one of the storylines we're seeing now. I know you're not going to drag it down to that, but the fact of the matter is Calgary's infrastructure deficit and its infrastructure woes have been on display for the country to watch. And I want to ask you about the implications for, cities across the province. Yeah. It's certainly not just Calgary. Yeah. But, you stepped into a situation that was already a crisis.
Yeah, no, I said in your live chat the other day, right? If people are looking for, finger pointing, scapegoating, but that at the end of the day, as mayor, public safety is my responsibility. If you want somebody to blame, you can blame me. The ultimate accountability for this is actually fixing the problem. And I'll give a shout out to Mayor Knack's leadership as well. I think he and I are relatively aligned in that. I think you ran for many reasons, Mayor, but I'd say one of my reasons was to keep City Hall independent, to stop a political party takeover, to keep the focus of the council on the practical stuff. And I think both Edmonton and Calgary, but also municipalities across Canada, are facing this incredible infrastructure deficit issue. And it's the nuts and bolts of why we have municipal governments in the first place. And it comes at a time when you have both provincial and federal governments blurring the lines and forcing many traditionally provincial or federal issues upon municipalities. And it's for that reason we joined Edmonton's call at our executive committee just a few days ago, calling for a pause on the ADAP implementation. We have poverty reduction, we have housing, we have mental health, addictions, recovery, treatment. The provincial government is forcing these issues on municipalities to weigh in. So we're having to do a lot more than we traditionally did, starting from a baseline of doing 85% plus of the stuff that comes from governments in Canada.
Did the
and on 8 cents on the dollar, by the way. We do 85% of the stuff that governments do with 8 cents on the tax dollars that are collected in this country.
Yeah, I think most members of this audience are aware that municipal governments operate operate under a bit of a different circumstance. You guys can't run big deficits. You guys can't, I mean, it is different than different levels of government. I want to circle back on the water thing, though. And, I'm a proud Calgarian, born and raised, proud Edmontonian now. It's a bit messed up, I acknowledge.
That's okay.
It is possible. I say to people, I was on with Sarah Galashan, CBC yesterday. I said I can talk about the Flames and the Oilers. But the Calgary thing is, every time I've been down to visit my parents, it seems like for the past number of months, everybody's on water rations, everybody's having 90-second showers and this sort of a thing. And people are talking about, how does this happen? How does it get to this point? Is it as simple as it's not sexy and it doesn't win elections to invest billions of dollars into water and sewer infrastructure, and so nobody did it? Like, is that oversimplifying the problem?
Well, at its simplest, we have one big tube that runs 60% of the water, and that tube is breaking from the inside in. So it's crumbling. It's in a terminally ill state of disrepair. So it's a ticking time bomb underneath our street. So we are hustling. We are working faster than anything we've ever done before. This is typically a 4-year project to replace a pipe of this scale. We're going to get that done in one single year. But for us to do some of the construction, it requires us to be able to turn off that pipe, which means that all of a sudden 60% of the water can't move, which means that there's so much more pressure on the rest of the system. And so Calgarians stepped up in a big way. We had a vast majority of our most recent shutdown. People were able to reduce their water usage significantly. And I think the regional story is important because it's not just Calgary proper, it's also Chestermere, it's Airdrie, it's Strathmore, it's Attina Nation. We saw us working together as a team to be able to get this done, and it's buying the time for the workers to be able to get it done. They're down 100 feet deep right now as we speak, tunneling in 6 different sections. This is probably the most complex municipal infrastructure undertaking, and I have mayors calling me up from coast to coast asking us how we're able to do this, because they're hearing the same things from their engineering departments where, chronic underfunding, lack of a sexiness for the stuff. You never cut a ribbon on a pipe that's 100 feet below the earth. That's just not done. So we're really trying to be that infrastructure city council to address some of the root issues and deal with it once and for all, rather than just scapegoat or try to point fingers.
Well, Edmonton doesn't have bulletproof pipes, right? I mean, is this on your radar, or are we sort of one moment away from experiencing the exact same catastrophic water main failure?
So I would say, thankfully, on the water main, no. But there's a whole set of circumstances. But it is a very common issue across this province. The reason Edmonton's probably in a little bit of a different position is that about a decade, maybe 15 years ago, the council of the day started to re-inspect some of their deep sewer lines. We also don't have a single line taking in 60% of the system. But when they started those deep sewer inspections, what they found, and one was found in the West End, in the ward I used to represent, that the pipe had, again, similarly deteriorated. The whole top half was gone. And they caught it early enough to be able to start replacing it. And over time, over the last 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of investment. I think about the $1.6 billion flood mitigation investment we made into our system back in 2019. So EPCOR's been doing a really good job of managing this, but there's a lot of other infrastructure in a state of disrepair in Edmonton. And then in every municipality across this province, they're facing either water issues, sewer issues, infrastructure issues.
What is Edmonton's Calgary water main?
I would say it's a lot of our civic buildings. We have a lot of aging infrastructure, single sheet ice rinks that were built 60 years ago that are on its last legs. You remember last term, Scona Pool had to close down because it reached end of life. We've got a lot of those older buildings built 60 years ago that we don't have enough money in our infrastructure funding to be able to upgrade them all. And so we need to figure out how we're going to manage that. We're working on a plan to address all of those gaps.
I don't want to sound ignorant because like rec centers and all that stuff, I mean, it's important. Community resources are important, but if a pool has to close down or if there's not enough ice times for kids' hockey teams, it's not the same as like a water main breaking and people can't get, you know what I mean? Like, is there something in Edmonton that is like, that could bring, I mean, aside from the construction right now, don't even get me started. But is there anything besides the construction that could like bring the city to a halt?
I would say, while we're doing this flood mitigation work that was approved back in 2019, it's a multi-decade project. And so there is some infrastructure. EPCOR's been working on a risk-based model to get the highest risk areas addressed. But, we could hit a 1 in 100 year flood this summer. And those areas that are scheduled for repair in 5 years or flood mitigation work in 5 years could see significant risk if we did hit that once in 100 year flood.
Okay. Dwayne's watching us live on YouTube right now in our live stream presented by California Closets. Book your free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. Dwayne says, how will Mayors Farkas and Knack make sure that the UCP, that the Alberta government properly funds infrastructure maintenance for Alberta's municipalities?
I think we're making the case, right? When you look at the provincial government, they're squarely focused on economic development, right? How can we expand the tax base rather than just increase taxes? Well, their pledge, I should caveat, the no tax hikes period did not apply to property tax hikes. So in Calgary's case, we're getting about a 20% increase on the property tax side and only 1.2% on our municipal side. But I will say that we make the case, right? So when Calgary is working together with, say, Rocky View County on our Prairie Economic Gateway, this is a transformative inland hub which has the ability to move goods across the region. I think that if we can make the case for funding these investments that actually bring in more money, more economic development, we can align with what the provincial government's stated priorities are. And I think both of us have a relatively pragmatic mandate where we can push back when required with the provincial government, but trying to seek partnerships when that rising tide can lift all boats. Yeah.
Johnny was just showing us. Johnny, can you toss that photo back up again that you just had up? This is. Did you know where I'm going?
I know where you're going.
Did you ever think that your meeting with the Premier at McDougall Centre in Calgary was going to explode like it did with the golden cat in the background? Did you notice the golden cat statue on the table when you walked into the room?
I did, but I didn't have the time to go and examine it. I did see it out of the corner of my eye. Yes,
in your estimate, this photo's been viewed probably, it's a top 10 political photo in Canada this year. I'm not even joking. You've got like Mark Carney, you got Danielle Smith and Carney signing the MOU. You got the golden cat photo that you're front and center on. What was that? What were you talking about with Premier Smith about in that meeting?
I was making the case for just why, when Calgary succeeds, the rest of Alberta succeeds, right? So it's not just investment for Calgary. When we're talking about connecting our LRT system to the airport, this helps the region. When we're talking about investing in, say, goods movement and logistics in southern Alberta, it's not just Calgary taxpayers who benefit, it's the region. Right?
You didn't need to convince her of that, though, did you?
Sometimes we do. I think right now we're very focused on, I think at the City of Calgary, we're focused on that regional table. We're working very closely together, actually catching up to where Edmonton's leadership is in terms of working as a region. So I'm making the case for why my asks in Calgary are not just mine alone. It's advocating for, say, a hospital in Airdrie. It's advocating for greater transportation corridors through Cochrane, right? So we're really trying to think more as a region, and I think hunting as a pack is a way that we can all succeed. But then also us speaking as a group, we're going to have a more effective lobby when it comes to actually having that appropriate investment come to the Calgary region.
I would say it's important. Yeah, we do still need to continue to make that case. It's not just Calgary and the Calgary region and the Edmonton and Edmonton region. Why we have to continue talking about this is back to your point around infrastructure funding, because I think if the numerous provincial governments, not just the current one, but previous ones, truly understood the challenges municipalities were facing around infrastructure, we would actually see some type of plan that shows how we're going to return the funding to the levels it needs to be at right now, because everyone acknowledges, including this provincial government, that they're not funding infrastructure enough. Rapid growth is happening. But after year after year after year of asking for plans to say, okay, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but when do we finally start to get catching up? Because it's not just the Edmonton region and the Calgary region that's facing this problem. It's municipalities across this province. When I was sitting on the board of Alberta municipalities, I would go into small towns and villages who are facing multi-million-dollar infrastructure challenges with no clear plan of action from the provincial government of how the infrastructure funding that was cut back in 2011 would ever see the return to the levels. So we do have to continue to make that case.
Super Chat Ken kicking in $5. He's buying both of you special coffees. He says kudos. He says being mayors in municipalities in Alberta, no easy feat given the challenges with this UCP government. Says thank you both for your service. Does Mayor Farkas have a little bit easier than you do in advocating for a city's priorities or arguing the case for a city to the provincial government? There's a perception, and I would say it's the reality, that the relationship between the province and Edmonton is more tense than the province and Calgary.
You know, I would say I haven't found that since becoming mayor. And what I have enjoyed is for every disagreement I might have, and you know, I spent the campaign expressing concerns about certain decisions, and I still have concerns about certain places there. But what I have found in my opportunity to meet with the Premier and the opportunity to meet with the ministers is that they do seem to genuinely want to hear what our challenges are. The question is, are they going to be able to follow that up with the action necessary to address the concerns? But I actually don't think it's as big of an issue as it used to be. I think that the election gave us a bit of a reset. Every election is that opportunity for a reset. And so I've worked very hard, even though I'm going to disagree on certain policies, to try to find common ground. The fact that economic development is one of Edmonton Council's top 4 strategic priorities is very aligned with this provincial government. And so I see a lot of opportunity to work together, but we'll push back when we need to, as Mayor Farkas does.
And if I can give an example of Mayor Knack's leadership on when he was a member council.
Can you guys quit getting along so well? This is not supposed to go this way.
So Councillor Knack made the point about the grants in place of taxes. So when the province owns property around the province, they are exempt from property taxes, right? So Edmonton has the lion's share because you think of the ledge, you think about the provincially owned buildings. Mayor Knack and others made the case that the province should pay its fair share. And this was a change that ultimately the Premier did make, and it disproportionately benefited Edmonton. So, if when you can make the case and offer a way for the province to do the right thing, I think the Premier is at least willing to hear you out. And that's an example of how Edmonton was able to make the case and get a change that Calgary didn't really benefit too much because we don't have a lot of those provincial properties. But in the case of Edmonton, this is a significant change that had a significant amount of money now coming into the Edmonton City Hall's coffers that previously weren't.
And I know you joke about it, but I mean, genuinely what I have found over the years is that municipalities have far, far, far more in common than we do in difference. And so there's far more value in me working with Mayor Farkas and mayors across this province than focusing on the 10% of things where we might differ on opinions on, because when we're too focused on that and we're dividing ourselves on those, we're not actually focused on the major issues that benefit most of the people we serve.
I want to ask the two of you, I don't think that this is exclusively a provincial issue, but the UCP is being accused of gerrymandering, as they will basically, let me supercharge this editorially. They're going to ignore recommendations from an independent commission, and it looks like that they're going to form a new committee. It'll be a majority UCP committee, 3 UCP MLAs, 2 NDP on redrawing electoral boundaries in Alberta. Looks like they're going to add 4 seats probably. I saw one of the big unions yesterday. I guess they've punched it into some sort of a data generator, and it's showing that with the new electoral boundaries, if Albertans voted exactly the same next election as they did this past election, it would mean 8 more seats for the UCP. Is this something that you would talk to your councils about? Is this something that you would have a public opinion on?
So I haven't had a chance to speak to my council members, but there's no way, I was speaking with a member of my staff, there's no non-cynical take on what the government is doing, given the precedent of many, many successive governments would just simply accept the recommendations without comment, right? So something special about here in Canada and Alberta is that we don't have the type of typical gerrymandering, the American style electoral politics, at least not to the extent that we see. And I would strongly urge the province to just accept the majority report's recommendations and findings in full.
Yeah, Mayor Knack?
Fully agree. At the end of the day, elected representatives should never be the people setting the own boundaries for the election. I have been on 3 terms of city council as a councillor, and when we go through a ward boundary review, there's an independent commission. They make their recommendations, and we accept those recommendations in full, because the minute we start altering those recommendations, even if it's truly coming from a good place,
Agreed.
There is clearly going to be bias. There is no way to separate that. It's why we should not be in charge of setting boundaries. It's why Edmonton City Council since 2000 has not been the ones setting their own wages. Those types of decisions, it is impossible to be truly unbiased. And
even if they do the right thing, it calls into question because their fingerprints are all on it. Yeah.
Exactly right. And so our council took a position on the previous piece. We haven't had the chance to chat about the new recommendations. So I'll speak for myself and say they should be accepting the majority report, although I still have issues with it, with the hybrid ridings and what that means for Edmonton representation. But that is the least worst option for Edmontonians right now, and more broadly, it is just the most fair way of accepting the majority recommendation.
We're hanging out with Calgary's Mayor Jeromy Farkas, Edmonton's Mayor Andrew Knack, in a special edition of the Real Talk Roundtable presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. When we come back, interesting polling from Polara shows that the 2 mayors' first 6 months are landing differently with Albertans. I want to get into that. I want to talk about their big early wins as they perceive them, some of the big early challenges, maybe some something they didn't see coming. Plus, more in our live chat powered by Park Power. Ken K, Noob. We see your super chat contributions. We're going to get to you guys. I want to thank all of you for joining us on our live stream presented by California Closets, or later, wherever you find your podcasts. This is a message from the Alberta Teachers Association. When 51,000 spoke up for Alberta students, what did the government do? They suspended teachers' charter rights to collective bargaining. They made it harder for Alberta's teachers to speak out and what students need at school. They did it by invoking the notwithstanding clause, and they didn't have to. Alberta's teachers want you to know that the government had other options, and that's why the Alberta Teachers Association is taking the government to court to get teachers' charter rights restored. They won't stop advocating for students because it shouldn't be wrong to speak up for kids. This is a message from the Alberta Teachers Association. We're going to give the heads up to our friends at Friesen Brothers, whether it'll be the Rabbit Hill or Glenora location, that His Worship, Calgary's mayor, is going to be popping in today. Friesen Brothers is well aware that Calgary is demanding a location or two within the next short while. And Mayor Farkas, if you want, I can set up an official meeting with Friesen Brothers brass. While you're in there, make sure you pick up some of the Alberta pork sweet breakfast sausage. I just had this last weekend. It is fantastic, and it is only available, friends, until the end of April. Level up your plate with Friesen Brothers' brand new Alberta pork sweet breakfast sausage, the ultimate morning treat. You can learn more by checking out the Butcher Shop link at friesen.com, or just pop into any of their 16 locations. Friesen Brothers, for 71 years, has been proudly Alberta grown and Alberta owned. For those of you that are considering getting back to school, you've had this dream, this plan of furthering your post-secondary journey, maybe readying yourself or maybe recharging yourself for a competitive job market, Athabasca University is ready for you. And you don't have to wait until January. You don't have to wait till September. Their world-class accredited online degrees and courses are designed so you can complete your education whenever and wherever it works for you. That's why more than 500,000 people count themselves as program and course alumni. More than 100 countries represented with that student population, by the way. You can learn more about how AU works, the AU Advantage, by visiting athabascau.ca today. And our friends at North Road Investment Council know that you may not be thinking about replacing your financial advisor. I mean, why would you make the change, right? You've built trust, you built that relationship over years of conversations and decisions, and of course that confidence matters, but what happens when your financial advisor decides to retire? For a lot of families, the advisor is the plan, and when that person steps away, it can mean sudden changes or unfamiliar faces, decisions you're not expecting to make. North Road Investment Council was designed to take that risk off the table. They're structured as a team, not a one-person practice. It's also important to know that you don't have to switch advisors to get started with North Road. They can work with you on a fee-only basis without moving assets, without disrupting your current setup, to help you build a plan that prepares you for what's ahead. And that's why professionals like engineers and architects and physicians and business owners who want clarity and confidence are looking to North Road Investment Council. Your financial life is a journey, Real Talkers, and it deserves a team that's built for the long road ahead. You can learn more about North Road Investment Council. Connect with them today by visiting northroadic.com. Make sure you check out the special feature. Our friends at North Road, recognized as trailblazers on Edify Magazine's 2026 list of the Edifiers. Congratulations again for this well-deserved honor to our friends at North Road Investment Council. We're hanging out with the mayors of Alberta's two biggest cities, Andrew Knack, mayor of the capital city, Edmonton, of course, and Jeromy Farkas joining us up from Calgary, making his...
Isn't that the city of champions?
What, do you want to get into this right now? I was steering clear of any hockey talk.
Well, I'm staying at this hotel, and they have this beautiful derrick for the Oilers. And,
yeah. Where are you staying?
I probably shouldn't disclose that.
Is that right? Is that a security? Breach? Well, no, let me say, because usually, because I would never.
It's not a fancy place.
Well, when we have you're the penthouse at the JW, you're staying in the Queen Elizabeth II suite at the Fairmont Hotel McDonald. I was, when Mark Carney's in here, and same thing when the Premier comes in particular the Prime Minister. We get the RCMP coming through with dogs, and there's people on the roof and 7 SUVs out front. People they don't mess around at all. And maybe this is weird for me to
Well,
point
that's
this
an
out.
element of like, we talk about the politics, but just how your life changes when you become mayor.
Of course. But I mean, here you guys are this morning. I mean, you both you guys take transit. I mean, you're just like walking down 104th Street, looking at the new hockey arena.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of different. The life of a municipal politician, you're much more accessible to the public, and I guess part of that, you have this like twisted love of it. You and I have never seen eye to eye on this. I tell you, we always
Where
tell
is this
people
going?
when Andrew and I'll call him Andrew for purposes of this. I'll get back to Mayor Knack in a second. But when Andrew and I are talking, and we candidly off, we've known each other for a long time, and we talk about politics, and I'll tell you one thing. The one reason I would never get into politics, I can't stand door knocking. And his eyes light up, and he goes, "I love door knocking." And I'm like, this is where you and I are very different. You don't mind. You don't mind it at all, do you?
No, I went door knocking about 2 weeks ago, and I was out and about again and had a chance to connect with people, and lots of people a little surprised that the mayor was at their door, just checking in to see how things are going. But it's truly for me one of the best ways to get out of the bubble. Like the problem in any level of politics is that you get trapped in a bubble. There's 30% of people who always love you, 30% of people who hate you, and there's 40% of people who are generally like, neutral. And you need to get out into their homes to go visit them where they're at, to be able to understand the wide variety of opinions that exist and not just rely on those that send you in the email or those that call your office. Those are important. I'm glad those folks reach out. But that's why it's important to be out in front of the people. And it's also why this whole month we're doing ward engagement sessions. I was at one last night. We've got 8 more ward engagement sessions on the budget already starting. We're out there in front of people, hearing from them firsthand. I love it. Always happy to do it.
How have you ensured that you're sort of like keeping your finger on the pulse?
Well, I think similar dynamic played out in our elections, right? I think I was outspent 3 or 4 times by 2 different incumbents, but it goes to show, like, if you're able to do the constituency work well, people are willing to give you a chance, but well and above beyond, say, partisan loyalties, above and beyond the money for advertising and the similarities but also differences in our election campaigns. But for my time as a city councilor, I loved getting out. At least one night a week I'd be out just randomly door knocking. I might be able to knock on 50 doors, chat with 10 people. But to Mayor Knack's point, though, it's the level of government closest to the people. The accessibility is there, as you said, but the ability to affect change is so much quicker, right? So if you call your city councilor about, say, even a pothole issue, there's a good chance that could be fixed in a matter of hours, let alone days, right?
Can you get the potholes on my commute fixed within a matter of days?
Well, did you report it to 311?
No.
Once you report it, then absolutely.
You know how much time that takes, man?
City crews have filled 44,000 potholes, but only 4,387 calls to 311, so you got to call.
I'm going to challenge, have you gone out on your
That feels like victim blaming, Mayor.
Have you gone on your pothole patrol?
I did.
I was out with the rake a couple days ago, and I was like, I wonder, like, I showed up, and the city crews were professional, but they're like, probably, who the hell is this asshole? Why is he slowing me down?
I did it in my first term as city councilor. I went out with the pothole crew. They do incredibly hard work.
Yeah, big shout out to our colleagues at the city of Calgary and Edmonton.
Yeah, we actually got in deep shit, me and Bridget Ryan on breakfast television many years ago, because we went out with potting soil and geraniums, and we started filling potholes as well on
But
people's
it's the work that
commutes,
matters
but
to people, right?
The city didn't appreciate
but
that.
there's no small job at the city of Calgary, like whether you're down 100 feet deep digging the new water pipe, whether you're filling the potholes, if you're cleaning a municipal building, trying to take care of getting your bus to arrive on time, transit operators, like it is where the magic happens in community building and engagement. And there's no better job, no more stressful job than being a mayor of a big city, but it's where you can actually make the change in a way that I don't know if the premier or prime minister, even if they woke up one day and had an amazing idea, that the ship is so hard to move at the provincial and federal levels, where at the municipal level, like if you have an idea, you can jump on it in a season and get it done.
I want to ask both of you about these Polera numbers that were released last week. We've touched on it on the show in a number of different contexts, but both of you named on a list. Polera puts this in front of Albertans along with other Alberta politicians. Interesting list, like Jason Kenney's on there, Rachel Notley's on there, Danielle Smith is on there. A couple of key things jumped out at me, and it feels weird to say this to your faces. I mean, I feel a little bit rude, but the people have spoken. 77% of respondents, Mayor Farkas, say that they are not familiar with you. This is the provincial polling. Same with you, Mayor Knack. 80%, 4 out of 5, say they're not familiar with you. People were then given the options of are they angry, are they frustrated, comfortable, and excited. And real talkers can see these numbers, for themselves. It shows, Mayor Farkas, quite frankly, that you're polling right now as the most popular politician in the province
Killing it.
at a plus 37 in Calgary. Mayor Knack, you're far behind. You're a plus 4 in your home city of Edmonton. Not a minus. For context, the premier in Edmonton is a minus 31, a minus 20 in Calgary, which is interesting, a minus 6 in the rest of the province. We can dig in from there, but your first thoughts on that, Mayor Farkas, what do you make of the numbers? How much do you care about a list like this?
Every politician is going to tell you that they don't look at the polls, but they're just bullshitting you. So
Yeah.
there you go. So, but I'd say, honestly, it's a reflection of my team. I've really tried to approach our city council a bit differently in that really taking charge of certain files, allowing the council members to establish them as chairs, as deputy mayors, for us to be able to get the water pipe done, to be able to address some of the issues around rezoning, for us to be able to spend 3.5 weeks through our budget proceedings, keep our tax increase low. I can't do that alone as mayor, right? So the number I get blamed for everything, but I also get the credit for everything. So I can't take personal ownership over that number, but I would say, just wearing my political pundit hat, I've only been around for a couple months, right? So still in that honeymoon phase. If anything, I look at that number and I say, there is political capital that needs to be spent in order to advocate for Alberta's role in Confederation, to be able to advocate for our newcomer communities, to be able to stand up for our trans kids. I see that number, and that number's too high on my end, because I need to use the goodwill that I have right now to actually make things happen, because we all have a shelf life as elected officials. And I'm wanting to be the best possible one-term mayor that there is ever going to be. So again, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I think the number is a reflection of the work that my team has been able to allow me to do.
Are you concerned about where you're at in the polling?
First, I'm gonna say I think Mayor Farkas is being too humble, because I do think they went through a pretty amazing infrastructure failure that he had to navigate, and yes, it's a team effort and it's a full council effort, but I think a lot of people saw your leadership about regularly engaging people, keeping people up to date about what was happening. And I mean, I can say, even just from Edmonton, watching the work that you did, how much it was appreciated. And I'm sure how many Calgarians appreciated that. So yeah, it's a team effort, but I think there is something to be said about the leadership that he's shown during a very challenging time.
I appreciate that.
I think in Edmonton, I'm not surprised where our numbers are at. I'm glad it's in the plus, but at the end of the day, we got work to do. We had, and I knew it was coming. I just wish it didn't come the year that I was the first year I got elected, which was the snow issue that we ran into from December 24th to the January 1st. We got hit with a massive snowfall. I think it was the 4th largest snowfall we've ever seen in December, and we were not ready to respond the way we needed to, and people were frustrated. And people saw it take too long to get into their neighborhoods. The second one, we did way better. But that, I think, really rubbed people the wrong way. They felt really frustrated by it. It was something I identified during the campaign, saying I don't think we have a good enough plan in place to address it. But I knew I wouldn't be able to fix it until the end of this year when we come up to our next 4-year budget. So, I appreciate working hard to still engage folks. I'm going to keep working hard to see if I can get up to those numbers. But at the end of the day, the numbers are less important. What is more important is, do people feel like they actually can be heard, that they are being represented, even if we're not always going to agree?
It strikes me that one of the areas where the two of you may be most different or see things most differently is on rezoning and policies. And I know for a fact that some Edmontonians feel that this council hasn't lived up even to election promises around what, in particular, mid-block infill can look like in Alberta's capital city. Your council voted, almost overwhelmingly, like 12-3, wasn't it? Yep. In favor of repealing the controversial blanket rezoning policy that had been passed just a couple of years previous, right? In spring of 2024. Why do you think the vote went the way that it did? What have Calgarians been saying that resonated with you and your council? And what does rezoning have to look like in the Calgary of today and tomorrow?
Yeah, I'd say there was a deeper issue in terms of the previous council and mayor were not seen as engaging appropriately with the community in terms of actually making the case for why that change needed to be done. Many of them had stated in advance of the public hearing that their minds were made up, and that just pissed off a lot of people, regardless of what the outcome was. Look, I'd say a lot of folks are very strongly in support of housing, and they want to see it done in a bit more of a thoughtful way. For Calgary, I think we quite overextended ourselves in that next to a single-story bungalow, somebody could come in, build an 8-plex, 3 stories, without any type of checks on whether the services or infrastructure were there to support it. for us as a council, like we've been leading the country. We constructed about 28,000 homes in the last year. And when I looked at the amount of houses that were actually being built as part of blanket rezoning, it was a very small fraction. So for our strategy, what we did is said we acknowledge that repealing blanket rezoning is going to mean less than 1,000 units can no longer be built. So let's replace that specifically with land and capital for non-market housing. So we've set a goal of at least 1,800, ideally 3,000 non-market houses to be built per year. Let's make this about affordable housing that Calgarians can actually afford at the affordable and deeply affordable level, rather than just say more $1 million condos for the developers.
Why not Edmonton along these lines? Is council in Edmonton wired completely differently than in Calgary on this issue?
No, I think it was really how change has evolved in the city of Edmonton, right? If you look back to the work that the city of Edmonton did starting with Mayor Iveson back in 2015, over the last decade, we have made gradual changes that have allowed us to end up where we were at. But what you saw in a lot of other cities, is, I think Calgary was fairly similar. I saw the same in Vancouver and Toronto, is they sort of went from 0 to 100 overnight. That's sort of my oversimplification of it. We went from 0 to 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to scale up, because if you think back even 7 years ago, you were allowed to build 6 units on a mid-block at 2.5 stories. So to go to 8 units at 3 stories mid-block is not as big of a shift as going from a bungalow to eight units. Now, we still had changes to make, and we heard back in February that the massing of the building is still too much. The full 3 stories is a little too high. So back on April 27th, we're going to talk about reducing the height back to within 2 feet of what's been allowed for the last 25 years in mature neighborhoods. We've already reduced the building length. We've reduced how setbacks, or rather increased the requirements on side setbacks. So I think we've been making more nuanced and gradual changes, whereas a lot of other cities sort of found themselves in a place that they had to respond very quickly. And that's why you're not seeing this conversation about a blanket repeal, because you'd be blanket repealing back to something that's fairly close to what's allowed today.
Matthew has kicked $20 into the super chat to ask me to ask you to talk to admin about the 311 app. I'll pass this along to your team.
Do.
He says it takes 2 tries to submit a report. The first one always gets rejected after 5 minutes. Transit feedback category requires incident details, even if it's just a route request. And he goes on from there. It's a passionate citizen, is Matthew. So we'll consider that registered with you here live on the show. We've also got an interesting comment here from Noob. Thanks for your super chat contribution, Noob. Noob would love for us to touch on high-speed rail between Calgary and Edmonton. I know that it's an intriguing subject, and I think that there's an argument. You don't look convinced, Mayor Farkas, based on your body language. From an Edmonton perspective, allow me to speculate that this would be killer, like not in a good way, killer for Edmonton's International Airport.
If done without thought, it could certainly harm
Edmonton's
our airport.
airport's already fighting for direct flights. A lot of people are traveling down to Calgary to fly out of Alberta. I mean, that's already an issue, let alone if it's quick and relatively affordable to get down there without driving, right?
Yeah, I'm personally a huge proponent of high-speed rail across the country. I think there's huge value. I know there's financial challenges and population challenges, but I mean, I think the actual technology is so sound and so thoughtful. Certainly, we would need to be thoughtful about that connection, but I do see value, right? We go back to an earlier comment. When Calgary and Edmonton are succeeding as cities, this province is succeeding. And there can be a case to say having that more high-speed rail connection, while also making sure that if you do that, we do that thoughtfully with both of our airports in mind, because we don't want to see, I think, my feeling as the Edmonton mayor is, I don't want to see a consolidation of all flights going out of Calgary. I think there's an important role. Calgary has some incredible flights. They're doing incredible work. We have different markets. We have different economies. We have different needs. And so that is where some of the nuance comes in. And so our airport also needs to thrive, but we might thrive in a different way than Calgary's airport. But I don't think we should throw away the notion of high-speed rail simply because of the airport conversation. We should just be thoughtful about it.
Yeah, was I right or off? You look like you're deep in thought now, Mayor.
I'm just processing something that I very much disagree with from somebody I very much respect.
Go ahead.
So, I am more a nuts and bolts person, right? So I think about economic development. I think about, can the service worker get to their shift in the middle of the night? Do they have the transit access, right? So when I think if we have billions and billions of dollars to spend on this type of project, how could we make that go further to Mass Rail in Red Deer, in Edmonton, and Calgary? I think about if it's we're even just we're begging the province for scraps even around low-income transit pass, right? So at this point in Calgary, we pay for 90% of the portion for the low-income transit pass for a sliding scale. So when we think about access to education, to employment, it's as simple as even having that access to low-income transit pass. So I think that the bang for your buck is a lot greater in terms of just helping the cities catch up and providing accessible transit service. So like the low-income transit pass, this is foundational, this is transformative. And right now the province's contribution, at least to the city of Calgary, is something like $5 million. We're contributing 10 times that plus to be able to maintain this program. It's access to education, to employment, it's poverty reduction. So I think if we had billions and billions of dollars to spend, I think that there's more foundational ways that we can invest it to a greater economic benefit rather than these legacy
You're
projects.
unconvinced.
Well,
I like if Daddy Carney wanted to come in and pay for it, maybe as part of a.
Is that what you call him?
I don't know.
so
It might work.
besides calling him Daddy Carney, which was wild, and I love it.
I think we just found our short, Johnny. Found our short.
I am trying to find $200 million for a water pipe. So Daddy Carney, if you're
Call
listening,
Daddy.
But I was
help us build a pipeline in Alberta. Maybe not the type that you're expecting.
Here's the good news is that I actually do agree with Mayor Farkas on that. I think based off the current needs, if we do have billions of dollars that suddenly became available, there's much greater need today in both of our municipalities to address. In a perfect world, if Daddy Carney comes to the table, goodness, this is going to be so much fun.
Well, what I'd say though is I think you and I could find alignment there, Knack, is if this was part of a broader strategy, I'm not hard or soft launching this, but if you had the prospect of the Alberta doing a bid on a 2038 Olympic Games, if you had Edmonton and Calgary and various facilities, even in rural areas, if this was not just part of it, this was a part of addressing, say, the Olympic Oval's needs in Calgary, if this was about athletes' villages that could be in the 3 top cities in Alberta that can be converted to affordable housing, if it could be connecting Calgary Airport to Banff, if it could be catching up on some of the essential infrastructure, if this was part of a tranche or a suite, a package, I could support it, but I could not support Calgary to Edmonton high-speed rail at the expense of needed support even for municipalities across Alberta.
Agreed.
Is the 2038 Olympic bid like a thing? Like, is that something that either
we literally have never talked about it yet, so this is
what a better place to talk about it than the Real Talk Roundtable,
right? But for me, I don't.
How serious are you about this?
Well, I think if Daddy Carney and Premier Smith,
give me a clip I can use.
There's going to be no usable clips from this.
I keep circling back for a reason.
It could be worse. I could be Stephen Carter. Right? So anyway, if the province and the feds wanted to come to the table and actually invest and help us catch up on some of these infrastructure needs, I could see a business case for it. But unlike the recent experience we went through in Calgary, it needs to be community-led. It needs to be more grassroots. It can't be the politicians driving the bus for legacy.
Yeah.
There needs to be a steely-eyed business case. And if this is the way that the West can get our proper investment from the rest of the country to actually be placed here in Alberta, I think even the more critical fiscal conservatives would support it. But again, I'd like to see Canada using our leverage to help reform some of those sporting federations. We know there's allegations of sexual abuse. There's a lot of issues with the IOC. But for my part, whether it's on energy, oil and gas, or even the Olympics, I think the world needs more Canada for us to be able to help these issues.
Okay, so you've now had 3 minutes to think about it. Would you support an Alberta Olympic bid?
Yeah, under that sort of thinking, I think that makes a lot of sense. We've collaborated on the World Cup of Hockey that's going to be coming, right? And that's
a big deal.
It's a huge deal. And we show that when we work together, again, when Calgary and Edmonton are working together, this province succeeds. So if we did something like that in partnership with the provincial government, in partnership with Prime Minister Carney, then yes, I could see value in something like that to really leverage the strength that we already have in this province and to strengthen this notion that Alberta is much stronger as part of Canada. And so, hey, if we're doing a bid together to show the Canadian strength that our two cities have, why wouldn't we consider an idea like that?
Trav Talk Yag is watching our live stream presented by California Closets on YouTube. Trav, thanks for your YouTube channel membership. He just says, more Canada. Will you be? You made a comment in passing earlier about Canadian sovereignty or Alberta's future in Canada. A lot of people are talking about Canadian economic or energy independence. I mean, there's big conversations happening right now. I think prompted in part by what's happening down in the United States, and prompted in part by a separatist movement in Alberta that appears to be gaining some momentum. Polling shows that the separatist sentiment is at a 5-year high. Yeah. It's estimated that maybe a little bit less than 1 in 3 Albertans might feel that way, or maybe I should say a little bit more than 1 in 4, around 27%. Will you use your platform or the influence of your office to argue either way? I'll leave the question open-ended.
Yes,
for Alberta's future.
And maybe a shout out to your one of your recent shows with Dan Arnold, right? Like he went into the support is potentially 40% plus when you think about the people who might be willing to vote that way to just send a message. But for me, it's that sending of a message that I have to deal with every single day. It's probably similar for you, Mayor Knack, but I'm given kind of call sheets of folks who are thinking about investing in Calgary, and they're wanting just like a social chat with the mayor to talk about what it's like, the quality of life, some of the other opportunities. And I'm not saying it's stopping deals altogether, but there's a lot of issues, a lot of funding that's potentially on pause here for Calgary because of the consternation and the overblown coverage of some of the separatist debate. Like if you are in Toronto or even elsewhere in the world, you're watching it through the filter of BNN, through Financial Times, the perception is a lot greater in terms of the threat here on the ground. I'm wading into this because it's squarely against the economic development goals of my municipal council, right? It is stopping jobs from flowing to Calgary. It's stopping investment from flowing to Calgary. So there is a lane for the big city mayors to be occupying here, to be making the case why even just talking about this is so damaging. We can talk about the fundamentals of, I'm Canadian first, I come from a proud newcomer family. The newcomer to Calgary is more likely to give you a job than to take your job based on the economic development analysis, the small business ownership, entrepreneurship rates. We got to continue to be a welcoming society here in Alberta. We can make that case, but just in terms of the damage that could be done from this, it's already being done.
I want to follow up real quick and then over to you, Mayor Knack, but you're not saying that investment could stop or dwindle.
It already is.
You're saying it is a thing that is currently happening.
Yes, it already is.
Okay. Your thoughts or your approach to the whole Alberta separation thing leading up to this, this big referendum, October 19th. The question's not on it yet, but everybody knows that's the whole reason we're doing this. Where's your head at on it?
Yeah, I think the challenge of your show today is that there's fierce agreement between Mayor Farkas and I on almost everything, because this is something I also fiercely agree with Mayor Farkas on. It is harming our country. It is harming our big cities. This even the fact that we're entertaining this conversation is harmful. When I go out to the doors, when I was out campaigning, I heard maybe 1 out of 1,000 people in Edmonton who would talk about this. And even those folks, yes, they have some concerns about the overall direction of the country, but so rarely did I hear from somebody saying, even if I can't stand the Prime Minister or the current government or the current provincial, whoever it is, do they want to leave this country? I get the numbers are where they are, but I don't think those numbers, I'd love to see the Edmonton and Calgary numbers, because I think if you broke down Edmonton specific and Calgary specific, you would not see anywhere close to 1 in 4, because when I'm out in community, I hear nothing close to that. And again, what I'm really worried about right now is the fact that there's this conversation is even ongoing is incredibly harmful to our economic development of our 2 major cities, which means it's harmful to our province, which means it's harmful to our country.
I want to, we've got to wrap. I know the two of you have busy mornings, and we've got Shauna Feth ready to join us with her eye on Alberta business. But I do just want to sort of ask, like, these can be quick hits, but sort of a big early win for you. This is like April 20th, 420, shout out everybody. We'll be
420, please.
You know what? It just means so much to me when politicians in particular laugh when I say 420. They get it. Prime Minister Trudeau was the first. But I got to interview him on 420, the first 420. No, it was not technically the first, but after he had legalized legalize cannabis.
Where is this going?
And we're interviewing him. It's going nowhere. Anytime I can
There's
talk
your
about
clip. There's your
weed
clip.
on my show, I get to talk about it. But we were talking to him at like around 4 p.m, by the way. And I asked him, I said, where's your head at on 420? Is the Prime Minister who legalized cannabis? Where's your head at? And he goes, Ryan, I've had briefings today. I've had meetings. He goes, you're the first person to ask me about that. I said, well, that's a real shame. No, but in all seriousness, 6 months on the job. April 20th will be your 6 months on the job since you won that election. What has been the biggest win
I'd
for
say
you?
jumping in the shower with Tyler Middleton from CJ92.
Can we roll this? We
You
have
can roll
the
it.
video. with full
I
sound.
know Johnny was cued, so.
Well, Johnny was okay. Johnny, let's roll this.
I'm ready.
You
for
can tell us
this.
what the
Let's
hell's
do
going
it.
on
Let's
here.
do it.
I don't think even if I explained it, it would. Make
Okay, here,
sense.
Real Talkers, check this out. This is Mayor Farkas.
Thank you for being a water hero.
Hello, darkness, my
And if you continue to be a water hero,
A deal's a deal.
Please
Welcome.
stand. I was taking a bath.
What am I doing? This is so tight in here. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, CJ listeners. Thank you, Calgary, for being such amazing water heroes. Save water, shower with a friend.
here's the real question though. What do we do next time?
Well, next time, the bet's on my terms.
Bet.
All right, so for the benefit of our podcast listeners, you're in the shower,
And
full suit.
that is the ducky tie from How I Met Your Mother.
Okay, okay. Well, added layers.
That's right.
They're added later. But for me, I picked that because it showed. Well, I should explain. So
Yes.
with
You
the water,
should definitely explain.
and I had to explain to my partner. I had to explain to my mom. So this is probably not the last time. So we went through water restrictions as we were fixing the pipe, and we're asking Calgarians to make relatively small changes. And Tyler Middleton on CJ, he wanted to do a PSA with me, save water, shower with a friend.
Yes.
So that was the whole premise.
that.
And then he was insistent. I think he sent about 500 messages to the office, including very, very large attachments of him in a Speedo and stuff like that. So, So he begged me.
Like, what was large about the attachment? Just so
Well,
we're clear.
it was too big. I couldn't. The email system filtered it out. So he said he wanted to shower with me and to film a PSA. And I said, all right, if Calgarians could step up and stay 7 days in a row in the green zone, the green being the water that we can sustainably produce from our Glenmore water treatment plant, yes, that I would have a shower with him. So we put the challenge out to Calgarians that as long as we could go 7 days in a row, and for the vast majority of our time, we were in the green zone. It showed Calgarians stepping up in a big way. And, a deal is a deal, a bet is a bet, and we finally got it done. But it's more demonstrative of Team Calgary, us actually working together. And I will that's probably me early financing my probably opposition TV attack ads in 3 years. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
That will be
but
used.
the whole point is you can't take yourself too goddamn seriously in this job, right? The job is it's stressful at the best of times. You got to be able to have a little bit of fun with it, and what you see is what you get in public and in private.
I respect that. How are you going to top that?
I won't. Are you making a bet to have a shower together? Like,
I mean, whatever drives clicks, whatever drives ratings, Mayor. Is that an offer?
I don't, what are we betting on?
Well, I don't know. Number one, I need like 4 months on Ozempic if I'm going to be going on TikTok with my tarp off. I'll tell you that much. What's been your biggest win of the first 6 months?
I don't know. What's
Aside
happened.
from seeing Mayor Farkas in the shower.
This is off the rails. No, I would say, honestly, it's been a lot of smaller decision points. Like from my very first motion as mayor was creating 300 new winter warming spaces that helped people who were on the street have a place to go. In particular, it helped a lot of youth from iHuman. They were able to do that. I know this is really boring and nuanced for a lot of Edmontonians, but council actually setting strategic priorities so we have a guiding North Star for our entire term is actually critically important to setting the foundation for our budget and all of this work. So there's been a lot of smaller things, reforming how we're engaging about this budget. The fact that we're out in community 8 months ahead of time, actually talking to Edmontonians, these are all smaller things that add up to, I hope, a much better city.
Okay, and I want to wrap now with your biggest wake-up call, or maybe the biggest challenge ahead, let's say over the next 6 months or the next year or so. What is it for you? Ideally, something we haven't already covered. He's deep in thought. Yeah.
Go to him first.
I played in a charity poker tournament last night for the Ben Stelter Foundation, right? Yeah. They're trying to bring this proton therapy center. Shout out to all the real talkers that joined us at Pure Casino Yellowhead. You can check out benstelterfoundation.com for more on that. So we're at this poker tournament, and I was at a table with a guy that was like cosplaying as a professional poker player, and he was taking, like the guys on TV, if you ever watch poker, that are like so painful. I'm not mocking you on purpose, Mayor Farkas, but this guy would like sit and think and sit and then fold every time. By the end, I'm like, buddy, you're going to fold. Just fold. Anyway.
So I would say my wake-up call is 10 years ago, like I thought I knew everything and I had to know everything, right? So when I was at the council table, it's very different as a city councilor versus the mayor. You're thinking much more about the governance. You're thinking about the reputation of the city. You're thinking about the workplace safety of the staff. And for me, I know a lot less today than I did 5 years ago, but I'm a lot happier for it. And there's parts of the job that you have zero exposure to as a city councilor, and you think that you know everything. Like, I had no idea that I actually personally signed the bylaws that the city council votes on and passes. I thought that I knew what Knack.dig had to do, and I thought I could do a better job. And for me, getting to just grapple with that ego part of the job, like having to lean on a team, that humility, like for me, it's a challenging part of the job because, again, you'll get the credit for everything, you'll get the blame for everything, but there's still so much that you don't know. And I'm sure it's the same for you, Mayor Knack, but you'll have folks contact your office on constituency issues and you really want to be able to help. Yeah. And many of the issues are outside of municipal jurisdiction. So if people don't get the responses that they need at the provincial and federal level, you want to do more than you're able to in the job. And you joked about us being 6 months in, right? But we're only got 3.5 years left, right? Yeah. So like there's a ticking that you're only can be around for so long to be able to drive the change, and you want to do more than you can. So how do you throw yourself at the job without destroying yourself and be able to do the work-life balance? That's probably the biggest wake-up call. Is this is easily a 90, 100, 120 hour.
Well, and no matter how many hours you're putting in, you could put in more, right? Like, I mean, you're probably
and you want to, right?
Well, but you're probably still looking at something going, you work 100-hour work week, but you didn't get to this, and it, and that may be a priority.
Yeah, and before people bitch at me in the chat, I'm not talking about like woe is me. The job is hard. There are harder jobs than being the mayor, but you have to be a bit of an expert in absolutely everything. And the pace of the job is it's not like anything I've ever experienced in my life, and I don't think you can do it for a very long time and stay effective.
I mean, realistically, within the next 18 months, it's a personal decision, of course, but within the next 18 months, both of you will probably start thinking about whether or not you're going to seek re-election, right? Like, it happens fast. Do you already know if you're going to?
I never thought in a million years that I would have won the previous election, to be able to run as an independent, to be able to outgun somebody who had like 3 or 4 times the money, to be able to defeat 2 incumbents. Like I'm really wanting to make the time that I have here count, and I'm not thinking about the next thing. I thought 4 years ago I would never ever run again. So who knows? You'll have to ask me then.
Okay, and I will. Your biggest wake-up call?
3 quick ones. One is, as mayor, I occasionally can't be at every council meeting, which is a hard thing to accept after having 100% attendance as a councilor. Even now, 2 minutes has gone into my council meeting that I have to go to right away.
I know,
so
I've kept you
I'll be
late.
there.
I
so
know.
That's a wake-up call. Here's the real ones, the more real ones. Number one is we are facing a very significant budget decision coming up later this year. We're going to be setting a new foundation for our 4-year budget. The wake-up call is that's going to involve us making some real tough decisions in partnership with Edmontonians, and it's why we're doing this work now, and it's why we want Edmontonians engaged now, because I don't want them coming around in November once the budget's already been created, trying to create the change that needs to be created now. So there's going to be some pretty big shifts. Looking forward to doing that. The other one is a really positive one. I thought after 12 years, I would have experienced it all. I would have been invited to every event. I would have seen every community group doing things. Turns out there's so many more incredible things happening than I even knew in 12 years as a councillor. The example I love to give, within my first month or so, I got invited to a German Mardi Gras that has been going on for 53 years in the city of Edmonton. I never knew it existed. There's so many community groups, cultural organizations, individuals who are doing amazing work in our cities. And I am just so inspired by it. And that is a wake-up call that brings me even more joy than I thought I could have in this job.
That is Edmonton's Mayor Andrew Knack, Calgary's Mayor Jeromy Farkas, joining us here live in the Real Talk studio at the historic Mercer Warehouse, presented by our friends at Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Ken K, I guess wants me to hit you with a bit of a cheap shot on the way out.
Okay, let's go.
Nothing
Let's
cheap,
go,
though.
Kev.
He's paid $5 for me to say it. It says, remember when the mayors of Edmonton and Calgary used to have Stanley Cup playoff bets? He says, I guess that's going to stay in history.
Well, we can make a bet.
Yeah, I bet you'd
How-
love to.
how
Yeah,
is-
you'd love to.
How is Draisaitl doing? He was at practice a couple days ago.
Yeah, the rumor is that, I mean, realistically, they're hoping for like sort of a mid-first round return. That'd obviously be huge, go a long way. And then Calgary. What's Calgary doing winning last? You guys got to lose. You got to get Gavin McKenna. You can't have the Flames pulling out these big morale-boosting wins at the end of the year, right? Can you talk to somebody over there?
Well, we were at the pub last night watching the game, and this might lose me a few votes, but I'll be cheering for the Oilers.
I appreciate that. Alberta's strong.
Yeah, Alberta's
All right. Hey, guys, thanks for doing this. Sorry to make you late for your council meeting. Just say you were with me. Nobody will be surprised that you're late.
Absolutely.
You can blame me.
Mayor's Jeromy Farkas, Andrew Knack here in a special episode of Real Talk. Coming up in just a second, Shauna Feth has her eye on Alberta Business. But first, I want to let you know, if you're thinking of putting solar panels on your roof, it could be your business, your barn, it could be your house, this spring or summer, you're going to need to get in touch with the team at Kuby Energy today. That's KUBY.ca. Why? Because their spring installation schedule is filling fast. And this is, of course, Western Canada's busiest solar installer, which means, their teams are getting set to go right now. Their engineers are drafting up these plans. But first, before they do that for you, we're going to have to get it all priced out. We're going to have to, of course, make sure that all of your questions are answered. That's why Kuby's Canada's trusted leader in solar energy, because they're all about the people. You can learn more about the company. Request that free quote today by visiting kuby.ca. That's KUBY.ca. How about this latest episode, the latest edition of Alberta Wins, presented by Play Alberta. In our most recent episode, I love that. The Real Talker writing in about how excited she was about the 2028 World Cup of Hockey. You can send us your Alberta win, something that really makes you proud of our home province. Presented by Play Alberta. Anytime, send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Albertans are winning every single day on the Play Alberta app and at playalberta.ca, including a winner in Whitecourt that just won $400,000 on Vegas Fruit Fortunes. A major casino winner every hour, and all revenue stays right here in Alberta. That's why we're proud to partner with Play Alberta. You can download the app today to get started with casino, sports, and lottery all in one app. Of course, you've got to be 18 or over to play, and when you gamble, please use your game sense. Our friends at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, I'll tell you, this is one of our best business investments. It's our business's biggest investment when it comes to networking and connection. Shauna Feth is about to join us here talking about the Alberta Chambers and the value of these conversations that happen when business, industry, and political leaders get together. Well, that's what drives the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce as well, and we wanted to put on your radar April 22nd exactly. If you go to the events link at edmontonchamber.com, they're going to be hosting Energy Minister Brian Jean for a conversation on energy policy and the impact that it has on every business, not just oil and gas. Pipelines, electricity costs, market access, all of these decisions are shaping your bottom line. That's why Minister Jean will be there in conversation with Chamber President and CEO Doug Griffiths. You can get answers on the policies that will affect your competitiveness for years to come. Learn more about the event. Register today at edmontonchamber.com. And before we get back to business with Shauna Feth, we want to remind you how proud we are to be partnering with UCAN Youth Services as our charity of choice for 2026. If you're an employer, if you're in charge of hiring for your organization and you're looking for reliable, motivated, trustworthy, entry-level employees, look no further than UCAN Youth Services. You can become a partner today. This is a great way to support young people that are just doing remarkable work, stepping off the path toward harm's way and onto the path of economic independence. The success stories are real. They are plentiful. And you can read more about them by checking out ucan.ca. Well, every week we have the pleasure of connecting with the president and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, Shauna Feth, and I rarely open with an apology, but I think I owe you lunch. That conversation went a little long. These two mayors back and forth, talking business, talking politics, and I would imagine as somebody that oversees advocacy for thousands of business owners across the province, you were probably paying pretty keen attention to what they had to say.
Yeah, what a fantastic conversation, and you guys covered off a lot of major business and economic concerns that we're hearing from businesses across the province. Not just in the two major centers.
Yeah, no kidding, right? We want to acknowledge that we're talking to mayors of two big cities, but of course some of these issues are certainly provincial issues. That infrastructure deficit one really jumped out at me. I thought that the mill rate and the tax conversation, pretty interesting. Was there anything in particular that jumped, before we get to the business at hand here, but anything that jumped out at you based on what they were saying that caught your attention as someone who champions business advocacy?
Well, I mean, really the whole conversation around separation, we've had that before. And I've said many times, and I've been quoted many times, that, you know, it's not about the ideology of separation. It really is about the basic economic concerns around development in the province and investment into the province. And so that was really clearly translated from their conversation as well. And I think that's a highlight for me in terms of supporting the work that we're doing at the Alberta Chambers to make sure that messaging is getting across, that people understand that, you know, it's not about the issue itself, it's about the impacts that it's having on business in the province.
Yeah, no kidding. Well said. Well, you know, we had the Minister of Red Tape Reduction in just yesterday. Dale Nally was in. We're talking about the Alberta Whiskey Act, but Albertans are hearing a lot about red tape, you know, and about regulatory delays, projects stuck in limbo, and there's been some interesting developments very recently. I'm grateful to have you here to talk about it. Two big developments in particular: a new cooperation agreement between Alberta and Ottawa on environmental assessments, which is a big deal, and the province's proposed 120-day approvals legislation. And so people want to know, like, when the rubber hits the road, is this finally the moment where major projects are going to move faster and at the same time hitting all the checks and balances without cutting corners, essentially? So when business owners see these two announcements, what's the first reaction?
Optimism, cautiously optimistic, I would say, because, you know, it's never been, the issue has never been about the environmental standards themselves. It's about the uncertainty in getting through that whole process of getting the provincial assessments done, then having to go through, you know, the federal assessments, and it often takes years to get these done. So it's just really positive in terms of these announcements are really reflective of the fact that governments are really paying attention to that, and they're looking at cooperating and working harder together to make sure that we can get some of these approvals quicker.
I've got an interesting group chat, and I'm going to respect the privacy of it, but these are my high school buddies down in Calgary, and a couple of them work in the public services, and several of them work in oil and gas, and we were debating this in the group chat yesterday, off the record, so I'll keep it that way. But one of the guys was going, you know, we're talking about the assessments in particular, and he basically is going, well, businesses, you know, you guys just want to ram things through. You guys just want things to be rushed. Interesting debate unfolded there. Let me put that in front of you. You must hear that.
Absolutely. We hear it a lot. And this is not about businesses saying we want to do it faster. It's not about that. It's about the predictability, and the predictability of those assessments being easier to obtain and less red tape inducing in terms of the repetition of between the provincial and federal processes. So
when this Canada-Alberta cooperation agreement, when people will see one project, one review, and it sounds efficient. So in that context, it sounds appealing. But what actually changes?
So really what happens is, historically, a project would go through a full provincial environmental assessment, and then it would face another federal process that asked many of the exact same questions. And sometimes that happens years later. So if you think about a $3.5 million project, industrial project, that's already gone through the provincial assessment process. It's gone through the municipalities. It's gone through Indigenous communities. It's already engaging with all of the public and all of the individuals that need to be part of that assessment. But then they have to face a federal assessment process that pauses those timelines and adds to that uncertainty when it's already jumped. The project has already gone and cleared through all of the hoops. So it's really, let's talk about respecting jurisdiction. Let's share the work, and let's not let's not start from scratch, really. Again, the second time, let's look at what's already happened and make the federal process a little bit more realistic.
What about for people, and you'll see it, people that feel like it's, this kind of code for lowering the bar, basically. The bar's being lowered.
That concern does deserve to be taken seriously, absolutely. But what's important to really pay attention to is that it doesn't eliminate the environmental review or the consultation process. All it does is coordinate that. So it's not about exempting anything. And so, businesses themselves know that any projects with weak environmental or community development foundations, they won't succeed long-term anyway. So it's not replacing any of that rigor or that assessment process. What it's doing is it's just reducing the duplication of it between the province and the federal government.
I'm curious to know where you'll land on this. Full disclosure on Bill 30, which was tabled in the legislature this week.
Yeah.
This is the 120-day Approvals Act, Real Talkers. It's on one hand, I'm going, I love the efficiency. I love the message that this sends. And on the other hand, I'm going, gosh, 4 months feels really aggressive for project approval. All things considered, I love efficiency, but it feels a little aggressive. Where's your head at on it?
So it is ambitious, for sure, and it should prompt some hard questions, but the key detail is that the 120-day clock, it doesn't actually start on day one. Projects have to show that environmental assessments and Indigenous consultations have already been substantially completed. And so if you think about a project where it's not on a greenfield site, but it's an expansion to an existing facility, there's decades of baseline data already existing. So businesses often ask why those projects still get caught up in that extended approval backlog. So really, Bill 30 is just really aimed to that stage, the after phase, where files can really sit for months and years without a clear decision, even though there is all the historic data and all of the approvals in place.
There's concern, and I think legitimate concern around cabinet involvement, pressure on regulators. We've talked a lot about regulators on this show in the past while, as you know. What's your position on that, or what sort of catches your attention in that context?
Well, that's a really legitimate tension. So, from a business perspective, regulator independence matters a lot. It really does. And investors want confidence that decisions are evidence-based but not political. And so the success of this bill will really depend on how it's implemented, quite honestly, Ryan, and whether it improves coordination and accountability or whether it's being perceived as interference in the process.
Okay, so people are going to wonder. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the question is, in particular, when you join us, it's Eye on Alberta Business. So the question is, do these changes actually make Alberta more competitive?
They can, for sure. I mean, we know capital is mobile, and Alberta is competing with jurisdictions that offer clear timelines. When decisions stretch on indefinitely, like we have been seeing in the past, we know those investment dollars are going elsewhere anytime that uncertainty is created. So the flip side is when projects move faster, and we know they move faster when communities trust the projects themselves. So, we don't want rushing or sidelining any of the concerns, but we do want to make sure that we can give some surety, some stability, transparency, and clarity around how we move these projects forward.
Speed and legitimacy, basically, as opposed to speed versus scrutiny.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And that transparency piece, knowing what to expect and how long it's going to take so you can understand your investment decision and the timeline around it.
Which I've always thought is whatever. I don't want to come across it's just such an obvious point that needs to be made. And I think that some of the criticism, even when people have looked back on, the previous federal government, for example, and I think some of the sentiments that people have had out of Alberta around what they feel was sort of kneecapped potential of the energy industry, as an example, a recurring theme through that was the uncertainty. I think that a lot of the policies created, not necessarily the yes or the no or the black or the white, it was what was left up in the air. Does that resonate with what members were telling you? I mean, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what we're hearing is that, the ambiguity of it and the challenges of being able to, again, make those really smart investment decisions and knowing what the timelines and the responsibilities around assessments were going to be was never 100% clear. And the timeline around that in terms of, is this going to take me a year? Is it going to take me 2 years? And then all of a sudden it's taking 3, 4, 5 years to get through those various levels of approvals. And now hopefully it's very nice in terms of it's very indicative of the fact that the province and the feds are trying to work together to put some of that clarity in place and really improve the investment environment within the province of Alberta, but also within Canada.
Yeah. Hey, I should mention when it comes to sort of one of the reasons why I told you, like, my grandpa used to work for the Chamber of Commerce. I grew up as a chamber kid, so it was always reiterated to me, and I found myself kind of applying these principles. I would call them chamber principles, even in coming up as a young man and into my professional life, the value of just networking and relationship building and being able to come together with like-minded individuals and also people that you don't see eye to eye with, that push you and challenge you and deepen your understanding of issues. And I think that's one of the things that you and your team at Alberta Chambers do really well. And I noticed that you've got your AGM coming up end of May. Shout out to Whitecourt. Whitecourt's going to be hosting, right?
They are.
We'll pop the link into the show notes here for people that want to register, either Alberta Chamber members, or you can purchase a chamber membership and get involved here. But what do we need to know about what's coming up in Whitecourt at the end of May?
Well, Whitecourt itself, I know just based on our conversation, I'm also going to give them a shout out because it's a really great example of a strong regional community that truly understands both opportunity, but what the responsibility is that comes with that growth. So a very good example of what we're talking about here today in terms of a rural community that's doing a really good job of that. But the AGM, it always brings together business leaders, it brings together chambers, it brings together, we often get elected officials and voices from the business community across the province all together, where we can talk about all these things. We can talk about investment, we can talk about competitiveness, we can talk about talent, which we've talked about a lot in the past, and what our workforce needs and the future of Alberta's economic future, really. So really excited to have all those conversations, and we just invite anybody who's interested, who would want to be a part of that conversation and that dialogue, or maybe even the debate. We obviously go through our policy debates at that as well, through that whole process of setting what our priorities are going to be for the next year. And that's all grassroots, coming from our local chambers up to the provincial level, so that we can be really good advocates for what's actually happening on the ground in the province of Alberta. So we welcome everybody who wants to join us in Whitecourt. It should be a great few days, and tickets are still available.
People can still get involved?
Yes, they can, till May 6th.
Okay.
So, yeah, we encourage anybody who'd be interested in that to join us. Would love to see you in Whitecourt.
I love that. It's been too long since I've been in Whitecourt. It's a great community. It really is. And like a very welcoming community. It's been my experience there.
One of the original Friesen brothers is there. So,
100%.
Whenever we go through Whitecourt, that's always a stop we make. So just a shout out to one of your sponsors.
Do you have, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Do you have something every time you go into Friesen? I would love asking people what, like, everybody seems to have like one thing that they buy every time they go there. What's yours?
Yeah. So we eat a lot of sourdough bread, and that's just our absolute favorite. That's the must have.
Yeah.
You can't go by it without getting the sourdough bread.
No, they are. It feels like two things are like integral to their, this is my opinion of it, not Friesen Brothers' official position, but their sourdough program and their butcher shop is like the two things that they just hit out of the park.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so good to see you.
You as well.
Thanks for hanging out in the green room while we went overtime in the other interview there.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was a very amusing conversation.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have
very
you here.
Interesting. Yeah.
One of my, just to kind of be nerdy for a second, my favorite part of the morning so far has been you and the two mayors before the show started, just hanging out having coffee. I'm like, we should live stream this conversation. This is leaders of politics and industry here talking together.
Yeah. A missed photo op, I realized after the fact, but oh well, it's all good.
We'll just pretend like it's 40 years ago before everyone had phones and cameras, and
exactly.
We'll just commit it to memory. Good to see you again, Shauna.
You as well.
Shauna Feth is the president and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. Again, you can check out more and check out the benefits of membership. Sign up to be a member today. This is where members matter. Benefits count at abchamber.ca. This conversation is presented in part by our friends at Edmonton Opera, and coming up in the capital city, Edmonton Opera presents Siegfried, one of the most thrilling chapters of the Ring cycle. This epic production runs May 25th through the 31st at the Citadel Theatre, but it will sell out well before then. This is a bold, larger-than-life story filled with adventure, magic, unforgettable music by Richard Wagner, featuring a fearless young hero, a legendary sword, and even a dragon. So whether you're an opera lover or maybe you're new to it, but this is a spectacular night out no matter what, one that you're not going to want to miss. Tickets are available now at edmontonopera.com. Reading some of the reviews, I love this. People, say Siegfried, a coming-of-age story. Another says, if you've never been to the opera before, this is the one to try. Dragons, heroes, magic swords, basically the original fantasy blockbuster. And how about this one? The music, cinematic. If you love film scores, this is where it all started. You can also browse the other offerings coming up through Edmonton Opera's season by visiting edmontonopera.com. And we also want to remind you that if you're coordinating a gathering, a big event, recognized as one of North America's top 5 performing venues, think about that. One of North America's top 5 performing venues. The Edmonton Convention Center is the center of connection for gathering and celebration. Built on the banks of Edmonton's iconic river valley, this venue's world-class culinary team delivers one of the absolute best fine dining experiences across the country from Canada's top chefs, led by Chef Serge Belair. The Edmonton Convention Center proudly serves as the official event and catering partner for the Art Gallery of Alberta, and we invite you to host your next event in one of Edmonton's premium event hosting spaces. You can visit edmontonconventioncenter.com/planning event/meetings. Nice and easy to follow there. We'll also link to it in our show notes. If you're planning a gathering, why not tap into the Edmonton Convention Center's world-class catering and in-house suppliers, as well as the technological expertise and tools? Ensure your meeting is a success. Learn more at edmontonconventioncenter.com. John Hicks, I will be dressed in a tuxedo tonight at the Edmonton Convention Center, hosting the, this is always such a thrill, the Consulting Engineers of Alberta, presenting their Showcase Awards. And this is, I like to say this, just a little nerdy fact, but let me just put it out there. This is my longest running hosting partnership. Longest running for more than a decade.
Really?
I've hosted the Showcase Awards Gala, recognizing the incredible achievements from Alberta's consulting engineers. Really looking forward to celebrating their great achievements. This is always the experience every year because they run through the nominees of the different projects, and these are engineers that have worked on everything. There's water treatment plants, highway overpasses, big, huge, beautiful, like the National Music Hall in Calgary, like big buildings, just incredible work. Really, the work that's been happening not just across the province, but tapping into the province's expertise, but it's also served as a really valuable resource for me to understand and see how the province is being built and where big investments are being made, right? Because some of the biggest engineering projects, the biggest construction projects are featured in the Showcase Awards every single year. So I always come out of that feeling like I have a bit of a better understanding of where, billions of dollars are being invested across the province. And it brings me back to the conversation with Mayors Farkas and Knack talking about the water mains and the infrastructure. And I think that's something that would register. We acknowledge we're talking to the mayors of the 2 biggest cities today, but across the province, and for that matter, across Canada, I'm not trying to sound sensational, but communities are crumbling. And if you don't get to it until it's too late, you've all of a sudden got huge problems on your hands. So I know that it's not like the sexiest thing to talk about, infrastructure deficits, but I remember we had an Alberta Municipalities Roundtable on the show about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And they planted that number. I can't stop thinking about $250 billion. They say that Alberta's infrastructure deficit currently sits around $250 billion. That is a huge number and a huge amount of work over the next number of years to come. So that's one of the takeaways, I think, from the conversation with the mayors on how they're approaching that one. Mm-hmm. What did you think about the Farkas shower video?
Well, let me just say,
and Daddy Carney.
I know it's great to talk about all those things, but it's also nice to just dress like James Bond and have a couple Dingerheimers with some movers and shakers, isn't it? Also,
yeah, there's something there's something to when you put on a tuxedo.
It's just
if it fits,
right?
I have a few different sizes.
Tuxedo's one of those things you either gotta go back in and keep getting it altered, or you gotta have a few. You gotta have like a summer tux, and then you have like a winter tux.
You know what I've learned, and this is just a shout out to all the fellas or anybody that loves to wear a tuxedo. I'll say this: two things will save your bacon. Number one, and a style forward, a fashion forward friend of mine informed me of this, is that if you're wearing a vest. So like anytime you're wearing a 3-piece suit or a tuxedo with a vest, you never button up the jacket ever. Okay. And so that'll bail you out if you've put on a few LBs. If you can't get the jacket done up, no problem. You got your vest, and then the vest, you always want the vest that you can let it out in the back.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of the double protection.
Yeah.
You let the vest out a little bit, you keep the jacket open, everybody's none the wiser.
I'm the opposite though. If I get bigger, I tighten the vest, so it's kind of like it's a girdle. it's holding everything in. But what a fun conversation. Look, no matter where your political allegiance lies, no matter who you voted for here in Edmonton or Calgary, if you're listening today, like it's nice to have two mayors who can banter like that, who respect each other, but also can say like, hey, I respect you enough to say I 100% disagree with you on that. They both look like two guys who came in at the same time with monumental tasks, and I think they both talked about them. Infrastructure was the main one. I think the snow here for Knack and the water in Calgary for Farkas. It was just like, what do? You're coming in and it's an emergency immediately, right? So you may not agree. You may be like, yeah, things haven't changed yet, but it's an incredible task to come into a city and just have like an emergency, and then like the largest snowfall, the fourth largest snowfall in Christmas ever in the city. And I was one of the people bitching too here around Christmas, but it was insane, right? So big props to them. But also like Daddy Carney is crazy. Usually I get like comments or like someone will push me up. I'm getting texts from people going, bro, Daddy Carney is what?
We might have to put together a special little YouTube short.
It's just I don't know.
Call me Daddy.
Say what you want. I like these mayors because they know how to lighten the mood and we do need to talk about serious things as well. But also like the shower thing. Tyler Middleton is probably was when I was in radio, one of my biggest inspirations, because I just those people, they're younger than you and they come up and you're like, God damn, they're already better than
Can't
me.
stand those people.
Oh, Tyler Middleton's
We're
just
joking.
One of the most creative, witty, like does stand-up comedy. You know those people who could probably be comedians, right? And they're on the radio and you're like, why are you taking up space in my industry? Go be a star. But that whole thing, like, I mean.
Also, shout out CJ92. Credit where it's due. When I was coming up, like I was in high school, 1992 was my first year of grade 10, like, and CJ was like at the top of the mountain in the early like 80s, like that. For a radio station to still be like leading the charge in its market for basically the better part of 50 years is wild.
Yeah. And just, he's just anyways, enough about Tyler Middleton.
Enough about our competitors.
I'm still jealous
Fuck
of you
those
to
guys.
this day, but I'm not in radio anymore. But like the whole show, like people say this is like comedy fodder, this is whatever. But you know what? Like people need to know that a mayor needs to be serious all the time, but people also need to know that they're a human being. Like Andrew Knack doesn't need to go knock on doors, and he's still doing it, Like Jeromy Farkas doesn't need to go on the radio and do funny things, but like it especially nowadays with everything going on in the world, it lightens the mood a bit. I'm not saying be a joker all the time. I'm not saying like spend time outside knocking on doors when you've already been elected, when you should be sitting in an office developing policy and trying to fix the city. But like that stuff has to be sprinkled in. It's like when we have shows all week that are serious, super political, and we throw in a light one. Like people get run down, people get sick of hearing the same thing, and people are stressed and have anxiety, and they need to know that the person living in their city is like a real person, laughs occasionally, isn't just a stiff in a suit. So I think both those guys do that well.
You know what I thought was one of the very interesting most interesting moments of the entire interview. And if you're just joining our live stream presented by California Closets, we talked to Alberta's big city mayors, Farkas and Knack, for like an hour. I'll be full disclosure. It had slightly slipped my mind that Knack's council meeting started at 9:30 Mountain Time, that we kept him a few minutes late. The good news is our studio is mere blocks from council chambers. But you know what I thought was really interesting? We take a look at that Polera polling. Farkas, what is he, a plus 37, I think, off the top of my head? Knack, a plus 4. Both of them in the pluses, which is good, but Farkas obviously miles ahead right now. But what was the one thing that he said? I mean, they said a lot, but the key thing that Farkas said, he said it says to him, his perception of this, is that now he has some political capital that he can expend on things that need to be done.
Sure.
What an interesting insight into the mind of a mayor. In other words, you can do something, you stick your neck out there a little bit, you do something that may not be popular with the province, or that may be a little bit divisive or polarizing within your population, even your base of support, but you have the polling, you have the confidence, you have the current popularity to be able to go ahead and do something like that. I think it also, if you look at the flip side of that, what does that tell you? Is that politicians looking at their polling that shows that they're not experiencing that popularity, or maybe that they're into one, as we would say. They're in the trenches, they're grinding it out.
We're into one.
Don't expect them to be ruffling a lot of feathers and trying anything crazy, because right now they're looking, they're fighting for their own political. I mean, that's a little dramatic.
No, I know what you're
fighting
saying.
for their political survival, but you know what I mean.
You look at a poll like that, most people are gonna be like, "Oh man, nobody knows who I am. Nobody gives a shit." You know what though?
Yeah.
It gives you a runway.
Yeah.
If nobody knows much about you, and your negative section is 5%. Let them know who you are. Make a splash. Do something outside the box. Maybe your negatives will go up a bit, but if they're only 5% and 80% of people don't know who you are, both of those boxes can go up at the same time, right? And maybe it's a positive and they find out more about you. So I feel like I was you don't see in the studio when we have the visual up, but they both turned and looked and were like, at first, but then they both had a good answer for it, right? I think it's an opportunity. I don't think it's if both of them were in the negative, I mean, you're seeing the premier's numbers on the same list.
Yeah.
I think it would be a big mountain to climb, but I think it's an opportunity for both of them. I think both these guys, as I said, came in with monumental tasks. It's still yet to be seen how good of mayors they both are going to be, but they both have huge opportunities to be great. And Farkas, I mean, he's straight up saying, I want to be the best mayor ever, one term.
Aurora Astra has sniffed out your strategy and hit the nail on the head.
What?
For those that are watching us on YouTube and across the 7 social media platforms, Aurora Astra says, Johnny's just keeping the camera on himself so he can keep showing that photo of Justin Trudeau with the monster joint on his screen in the background.
Happy 420, everybody. I was hoping to find a real photo of Justin Trudeau smoking a doobie,
we're not
but
there yet.
there's none of those
there yet.
There's
It's
none
going
of
to be
those
Monday.
around.
And for my recent birthday, I want to thank everybody, by the way, for the kind and generous birthday wishes. My beloved and wonderful wife has got me 2 tickets, me and her, for the 420 Sheepdogs concert.
Oh, no.
Bro. So on the 21st,
good, like I know I would, and
on the
smoke
21st,
everywhere.
Tuesday morning, the morning after, when we check in with Conservative MP Billy Morin, who was caught on a hot mic. You know what? If you're going to get caught on a hot mic, you want to get caught like Billy Morin was, which is keeping it classy and being professional, because that's all that happened. But did you guys see this story? I'm sure you did. I can't get it. And we're never surprising Real Talkers with anything. You guys are the most plugged in people in the country. But Billy Morin, MP, Conservative MP, first term, formerly like Grand Chief, the guy's been has had political promise. I think recognized since he was a young guy. Anyway, was one of the Conservative MPs. Reportedly, he's going to talk to us about it on Tuesday. We'll get the inside scoop. But approached by the Liberals to cross the floor, and his answer, hell no, I guess. But he was asked about it at a news conference in a hot mic. They were like waiting for people to step to the podium, and he's behind the scenes. And you can hear him talking about how, he was approached, and no, he's not going to cross. I texted him. I said, gosh, that could have gone a lot worse. The hot mic moment. Have you ever been caught in the course of your radio career on a hot mic?
Yeah. When I first started out, when you're first learning a board and everything, even a technical DJ guy like me, you hit the wrong fader off. And I remember I was doing, luckily, when you first get your first break, if anyone knows out there, there's one of two things. You're either in some northern town where there's only 1,000 people, or you're on the worst shift on the station. And I was in Edmonton, so I got the worst shift on the station, which was Sunday nights, which rolled into Monday mornings from 10 till 2, which was basically like, do whatever you're going to do, mess up here. But I remember it was like 11 o'clock and I was doing some hit about some pulp culture thing. And I remember trying to get the last sentence out. And I just, when you fumble your words and then you fumble again, you just can't get it out. And you wish someone was there. Like if you were at a bar, somebody would just say the sentence for you because they know what you're trying to say and no one was there.
Yeah.
And I hit the next song and I thought I put my pod down or muted the mic channel. And I went, the F word for 10 seconds. I just screamed it back. And then I looked back and I was like, oh no, that went straight to air. But hot mics are deadly, man. And now in this day and age, it's not even hot mics. We're on hot cameras. So I mean, and hot phones, I would say. Like everyone, especially if you're in a position of power, if you're someone important, if you're making a statement, if you're in a moment where people know like the foot is on your neck, you're under scrutiny, you're under stress, you've got cameras all around you, 360 views. So it's a very tumultuous time to try and be a human being, because I see these videos, right? I see these hot mic videos and I think, man, it's not that bad. Like most of us think these thoughts, we just don't say them. Sometimes they come out at the wrong time.
Yeah, absolutely. Garth, great to see you in the live chat, Garth, as always.
Party
Thanks
on,
for
Garth.
party on, Wayne. Party on, Garth. Appreciate the $5 into the super chat. Very generous. He says a sitting mayor door knocking has my respect. He says that's a refreshing approach. I agree. And you know what I thought?
Said.
It
Even
was
if you don't
interesting
like
for Farkas said, he goes, you knock on 50 doors, you talk to 10 people, sort of law of averages, who answers it or who doesn't. I guess in my mind, I think of door knocking as like spending your entire Saturday having people just bitch you out on their front porch. Nobody's ever happy. I'll say it this way, and you laugh at me. I'm never happy when my phone rings, and I am never happy when my doorbell rings, ever. I literally never want you.
I don't think anyone likes a doorbell
If you're my
ring,
parents or family members, call me all you like.
I mean,
but other than that, I never want people calling me. I never want people knocking on my door. But I would say it does show some effort. And if you sort of bang it out, like you got an hour here, you got an hour there, I can understand the strategy.
Yeah.
The
majority of people, I agree. I think there's some older people who keep some Sanka and some donuts around for when people stop by.
Jeez.
For all you who know, there's a shout out. But you know what I mean? There's
is Sanka is the Sanka the poor man's Folgers, or is Folgers the poor man's Sanka?
Sanka was big in New York in the 80s and 90s.
Sanka doesn't even go into a filter; it just goes right into the water.
You just dump it.
You just stir it in.
If people stop by, it's like we have coffee in 10 seconds, right? Anyways. Can we get off the Sanka, please?
No.
What I'm saying is, my grandma loved people to stop by, but I think the majority of people who even vehemently disagree with, say, Andrew Knack, for example, and would go online and be like, blah, 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 bark it. When you knock on their door and they see you face to face, the majority of people aren't immediately aggressive, right? The majority of people are pretty chill, and let's be honest, and this isn't an insult, I'm like it too. The majority of people are keyboard warriors for the most part.
Yeah.
Some percentage. You say a lot of huff and puff online, but when someone's in front of you, it's a whole different story. When someone's in front of you giving their opinion. So I like the fact that he goes out and does that, because you can post a video, promotional video, you can post, your opinion. Hey, we're coming forward with this policy, this new initiative in the city.
Yeah.
And the comments will just be F you, F you, F you, F you, F you, F you, no matter what you're trying. We're trying to save all the puppies, who are starving in Edmonton. They'd be like, F you, F you, F you. But you go to their door.
Yeah.
And it works a lot better.
Yeah.
I think people kind of gear down. I think people would more likely to give you a minute or two of their time. And so I think that's smart. But for me, yeah, I don't ever like anyone coming to my door. But if it was a mayor, it's
kind of cool.
You kind of feel special, right?
Tracy says she loves door knocking. She says it's truly a great way to fully understand the pulse of a community. 100% true, Tracy. Absolutely true. It is true. I guess it's just I'm lazy, People say, well, why would I, I've said I have zero. And
you're not lazy.
Hold me to this, Real Talkers. I'm telling you, why would I even give you this? But I will. I'll put it on the record because I've said it before.
Think about this.
The reason, maybe we can just wipe this episode. We'll just cut this out of the podcast after I think about it for a minute. But I'm serious. I'm confident in saying I will never seek political office. And I think a couple of those reasons are that I really get uncomfortable around fundraising. And I will fundraise for causes that we care about. Real Talk, through the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship, there's 8 post-secondary students this year alone that are having costs covered due to the scholarship, thanks to the support from Real Talkers like you who attend our Real Talk Golf Classic. By the way, registration opens on Monday, April 20th for our Golf Classic. Mark your calendars, June 18th. More official news on that coming up on our Monday show on the 20th of April when Supriya is back with us. But other than that, like asking people to kick in money to like support your political campaigns or support this, that, and the other, it just makes me, I don't know, maybe you're the same as me, maybe you're different, but I've never loved fundraising. It makes me a little uncomfortable. And I've never really loved door knocking. And I think I also have PTSD, and I'm not using that phrase lightly, and I'm not being glib about it. I sold books door to door one summer in Ottawa when I was in university, and it is, I've worked on an assembly line before. I've worked in a furniture warehouse before. I've done a ton of stuff. I used to assemble box spring mattresses, Johnny, in high school as a job, a sort of a 4 p.m. to midnight job. I've done some stuff that wasn't the greatest. And I would say door-to-door sales is the absolute worst.
It's horrible.
Nobody is happy to see you at their door. If your success rate, they'd say you got to have 30 conversations every single day. It's called the Southwestern Company. You guys can Google it. It's wild. Based out of Nashville. They've been around for like 150 years. They started with selling Bibles. It's a wild. And some university students, Johnny, make over $100,000 a year doing it. Like it's all commission based. Mm-hmm. But they say like you got to do 30 pitches and 30 presentations a day. You're working 14-hour days, and if you can average a 10% close, you're going to be among the top performers in the company. Well, what does that tell you? That means that 90% of people are going to tell you no. And that's 90% of the people you're having conversations with, not including the people that slam the door in your face. Mm-hmm. And so I think I am a little bit affected by that summer knocking on people's doors and just the impact. But those are the two things about public service, about politics, that have always turned me off. I think for a lot of other people, they get excited about that. They love fundraising. They love team building. They love, and I think that we need more people like that in politics. Mm-hmm. If I know before the rubber even hits the road that I don't want the job, I shouldn't have the job.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, I don't like answering a door, but I always indulge. And I always try to make the other person feel a little uncomfortable too, because they're making you feel uncomfortable. I get a lot of, I met 2 guys from Utah here on a mission, LDS.
Yeah.
Going door to door. I could tell who they were when they knocked. Can I talk to you today about our friend Jesus Christ? I said, you know what? Yeah, let's talk about it. And then tried to keep them there for because like you just said, we're going to hit these many houses. We're going to talk to the people for this long or whatever. I was just like, I'm going to see how long these guys want to talk. I'm talking about everything with these guys. The Oilers, the weather.
Yeah.
Like Trump, the states. I love it, making them feel a little uncomfortable. But I give big props to someone who puts himself out there, because Andrew knows when he goes to a door, somebody potentially, I think the percentage is low, could open the door and just say F you and start screaming at you.
Yeah.
So you're putting yourself out there every time you knock on someone's door.
100%. Alyssa says, out of Calgary, says, I didn't know people answered their doors anymore. She says, I never do.
You check the ring
unless
cam?
I know somebody's coming over. Have you seen the video that was trending this week about that crazy dude in the trench coat that was caught on the ring camera and basically tried to assault a family? The dad had to come in with a shovel. The dad. Anyway, I digress.
Thank God for ring cams.
Tracy says door-to-door sales would be much harder. Says political canvassing is a lot easier. Cassandra says door knocking and door-to-door sales are very different. She says, I've done both. She says, I was pretty damn good at the sales. I never got a door slammed in my face. Congratulations. Must be nice. Tony says she remembers selling Avon door-to-door back in the day. Says that she absolutely hated it. Tracy C says the most fun that they've had in 50 years was canvassing in rural Saskatchewan. So there you go. Yeah. Different strokes for different folks, baby. I get it.
I do like when I like Arbonne. I like when they come by my door.
What's Arbonne?
Arbonne's like a bunch of health products too that I used to use.
They're still selling door to door?
People, it's crazy how much door to door they do. I do disagree though. I think door knocking, you're selling yourself, right? That's what you're doing basically. Yeah. So I think they're similar.
Yeah. Okay, listen, we got to roll into the weekend. We got a lot going on, friends. And so I'll tell you what we're going to do. It's the same thing that we do as we wrap up every week, courtesy of our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. By the way, who knew that Calgary's mayor, Jeromy Farkas, a former DQ employee, he shared that with us in the green room today. Farkas, a big fan of the Flamethrower, proudly presented by the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. And KP leads us off today. He says, Jespo, I see and hear all this bullshit about gerrymandering in Alberta, and I would like to point out the blatant hypocrisy that Liberals and NDP supporters are using, some pointing to the majority report, thinking it's like the UCP's minority report and crying gerrymandering in the UCP's favor. I couldn't agree more with the fact that they are gerrymandered, but in favor of the NDP, says KP. Nenshi, of course, seeing his gerrymandering failing, points the finger, and the UCP shouting American gerrymandering. You know, Smith's doing illegal activity while ignoring the gerrymandering that his own NDP did. Says also forgetting in 2017 when he threw out the independent ward commission's report in Calgary, redrew the ridings in Calgary's municipal elections to carve out the councillors he didn't like working with. And then again in 2020, dismissing the commission entirely as the mayor's office redrew the maps again. Every accusation from Nenshi and the NDP is an admission of guilt. Says this is not the only gerrymandering we see in Canada. In BC, the NDP did it around Vancouver. Federally, the Liberals did it, putting that law into Quebec that they can't have fewer than 87 seats, a Liberal stronghold, and redrawing ridings around Ottawa and Toronto to make Conservative ridings more red. One of those, Carleton, Pierre Poilievre's former seat, which got significantly more urban. So in the end, says KP, every Liberal or NDP supporter, these lying accusations are just admissions of their own wrongdoings, and it's been like that for decades, and it's time to shine a light on the lies, says KP. Well, guess what? Chris disagrees, and he says, I have grave concerns regarding these proposed electoral boundary changes being considered in Alberta. I strongly believe that the process of determining these constituency boundaries should be fair, transparent, and designed to ensure that all citizens have equitable representation. Says, as an educator and a school leader working closely with family and communities, I see every day how important it is for people to feel that their voices matter. And when boundary changes appear rushed or politically influenced, it risks weakening trust in public institutions and civic participation. Chris says Alberta has a strong tradition of democratic participation and fairness. Preserving the credibility of our electoral system should remain a shared priority across all parties and governments. Chris, great take. What about this one from Brenda, who says, sorry, Ryan, are we still pretending that this is some sort of neutral, good faith, technical adjustment? She says, because from where I'm sitting, watching the news this week, this smells a whole lot like the UCP looking at the map, not liking what voters did with it, and redrawing the lines until they get a different answer. Let's call it what it is. When your solution to losing ground in the cities is to dilute the votes and bulk up rural influence, that's not representation, that's strategy, says Brenda, and it's not admirable. That's the kind that gets whispered about in political science textbooks. It's called gerrymandering. The independent commission did its work. Public hearings, submissions, actual process, and now suddenly there's talk of tweaking or overriding it all. Convenient timing, isn't it? Almost like democracy is great right up until it stops working for you. Brenda says even the criticism isn't subtle. Concerns these changes would increase the weight of rural votes, which just so happen to lean UCP, while urban voters get squeezed. And here's the part that really gets me. She says politicians love to talk about trust in institutions right before they start sanding those institutions down. If you have to redraw the map to stay in power, maybe the problem's not the map. Maybe it's you. That from Brenda. Nice take. How about this one from Nathan, who says, Jespo, I live in Lethbridge. Just last weekend, I was driving from the west side to the south side along, and then I'm going to insert my own comment here. This is, as far as I'm concerned, the best named road in the country. Back to Nathan's email. He was driving along Whoop Up Drive. Shout out to Lethbridge. He says, I happened to notice a whole convoy of Alberta separatists driving together with their Alberta flags all over their vehicles, proudly honking their horns. I mean, all the power to them, says Nathan, for practicing their fundamental freedoms under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That's not why I'm writing in today, Jespo. What really grinds my gears is that Alberta separatists and the Freedom Convoy of 2021 have both hijacked symbols for their cause, in this case, the Alberta and Canada flags. If you want to separate from Canada, by way of Alberta, go right ahead, but don't use our current provincial flag. Make your own freaking flag and stop polluting the current one. During the convoy, you couldn't take a Canadian flag anywhere without people thinking that you were in support of the cause. Now, you can't really utilize an Alberta flag without people automatically assuming you're a separatist. It makes me upset to see people taking things that should be non-political, like a flag, and twisting it for their own self-centered political agenda. Nathan says, I'm not saying you can't support separation or the convoy, if that's what you really want to do. I'm just saying, make your own fucking flag. That from Nathan. I guarantee we're going to get an email about the LGBTQ community co-opting the rainbow flag from somebody. talk@ryanjesperson.com. And Johnny, I know we have a video for this one. This is from Roger. Roger was in touch with the show as soon as I made the comment. And Roger, before I read your words, I want to acknowledge I almost regretted it as soon as I said it earlier this week. He says, Jespo, buddy, a wild take. Did I hear you say on the show grown adults shouldn't seek autographs? He says, why don't you tell that to Sidney Crosby? Only one of the greatest to ever play hockey, to ever play the game, who literally asked Alex Ovechkin for his, yeah, that's right, Jespo, his autograph after their 100th game playing against each other. So unless you're ready to call Sidney Crosby a starstruck kid, I'm going to say maybe there's still room for a little awe. Even when your mortgage is paid and your back hurts in the morning, let people have their moments, Jespo. Some of us still think it's pretty cool to meet greatness up close. You know what, Roger? 100% right. I agree with you, and I was out of line. You go seek those autographs. Even if it's just Johnny Infamous out in the wild, he'll sign your chest, he'll sign your forehead, he'll sign your t-shirt. Just tell him that the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park sent you. The Flamethrower is proudly presented by those DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. The next time you're in there to grab a Flamethrower, signature stack burger, and a Score Blizzard, you let them know that you heard about them on Real Talk. Friends, have an incredible weekend. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you tell your friends and family about this show, and we'll see you back on Monday, 4:20, with Supriya Deveti.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Deveti.